And good morning, friends. Welcome to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for being here. 844-236-6010 is our number. We love hearing from you on The Bright Side, 844-236-6010. If you have questions, comments, success stories you'd like to share, if you just want to contribute to the conversation, 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll get your calls next segment. We'll talk to Suzanne Jones at the bottom of the hour. Suzanne is the author of a book called There Is Nothing to Fix, Becoming Whole Through Radical Self-Acceptance. We're going to talk to Suzanne about the stress response and what we can do about it, where it comes from and what we can do about it. And that'll be at the bottom of the hour. We'll get your calls next segment, 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, go to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can purchase longevity products right off the site, or you can sign up to join the Brightside Ben team by clicking on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can also call 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470 if you want to talk to a real live flesh and blood human being about the longevity products or the longevity business opportunity. And now is a perfect time to start a home-based business with layoffs and lockdowns and business closures and uncertainty. There's nothing that can help you more get through any kind of financial difficulties more than being your own boss and starting a home-based business, especially a win-win home-based business, like helping people understand how to utilize and how to take advantage of nutritional supplementation with the longevity nutritional supplements. Call 866-735-2470 if you're interested, or click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. Our number, 844-236-6010. We'll get your calls next segment. Suzanne Jones is with us at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk about her book, There Is Nothing to Fix. All right, so we've been talking about fats, lipids, if you will, and the nutrient choline, which you'll find in fatty foods. Choline itself is a B vitamin, or actually it's B vitamin-like. They used to call it vitamin B4, and it's water-soluble, but it's tweaked biochemically in the body to form fatty membranes, which makes it very important for the brain and for the nervous system. It's been used to treat peripheral neuropathies. If you go on Amazon and try to get a supplement for peripheral neuropathy, you'll find choline. More than likely, you'll find choline or one of its derivatives in your neural health formulation. Peripheral neuropathy is an absolutely miserable health condition. I did an interview this morning where we were talking about this peripheral neuropathy condition. Peripheral neuropathy, as the name implies, is pathology of the nerves in the periphery, the hands, the arms, the legs, and the feet. Most often it's in the legs and in the feet, and it feels basically like your feet are on fire. It feels like your legs are on fire. My mom is dealing with it now, and it is an absolutely miserable condition. If you have this horrible condition, peripheral neuropathy, you might want to try using choline supplements or lecithin granules, which are a source of choline. But basically, you're dealing with a circulatory issue. The nerves are affected because of the circulation. If you have peripheral neuropathy, you want to consider it to be a circulatory issue that's leading to suffocation and malnourishment of the nerves. The suffocation and malnourishment of the nerves results in inflammation, and that's what the neuropathy is. It's your nerves screaming at you, I need some oxygen, we need some food, we need some circulation. In addition to using choline, treat yourself like a diabetic. Peripheral neuropathy and diabetes go hand in hand, and that's whether or not you've been diagnosed as a diabetic. Just because you haven't been diagnosed as such doesn't mean your blood sugar is not messed up. In fact, diabetes may be the name of the diagnosis, the name of the disease, but the biochemical breakdown is dysglycemia, messed up blood sugar. And dysglycemia can occur whether or not you've been diagnosed as a diabetic. Diabetes is just the nomenclature. It's just the name. It's just the diagnosis. The biochemical breakdown is dysglycemia, and it occurs, you can tell it's occurring if you're symptomatic. And neuropathies are symptomatic of dysglycemia. Obesity is symptomatic of dysglycemia. Accumulation of belly fat is symptomatic of dysglycemia. Liver disease, fatty liver, is symptomatic of dysglycemia. Dysglycemia, all of these symptoms can occur if your blood sugar is messed up, and the doctor will say, well, you're not a diabetic, you don't have to worry about it. Not true. If you got peripheral neuropathy or any of the other symptoms of dysglycemia, work on your blood sugar. Go ketogenic. Go low calorie. And make sure you're exercising. You do all kinds of foot exercises, by the way, with a tennis ball. Just kind of grabbing the tennis ball with your toes and exercising your feet. You could do leg exercises. That's actually one of the best ways to deal with neuropathies, is to make sure you're improving circulation to your extremities by doing exercises. But choline can help also. Alpha lipoic acid can be really helpful. The B vitamins in general, especially thiamine and niacin, can be helpful. And also selenium and sulfur, and of course chromium and vanadium, which you'll find in Youngevity Sweeties products. Choline is also important for the fat processing system. It's a component of bile. Supplementation with choline can help with fat malabsorption issues. If you get a fat malabsorption product from the health food store, and they make various kinds of supplements that you can take if you're dealing with fat malabsorption, they're likely going to contain choline. And one of the most important places where choline plays a role in the health of the body is in liver disease, fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which, as we said yesterday, affects 1 out of 3 Americans. Alcohol, if you're drinking alcohol, and that includes wine, that's going to increase your choline requirement. That means if you're drinking alcohol, you're going to bed at night with wine, or you're drinking vodka to go to sleep, or if you're having a nightcap every evening, chances are pretty good you're going to be deficient in choline, and supplementing with choline can help protect the liver against against fatty liver disease, against non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's just going to help protect the liver in general. If you're taking a lot of prescription drugs, that can affect the liver, and choline can be helpful there too. And because the brain is dependent on choline, if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, you may be able to protect your brain, and for that matter, you may be able to protect your entire nervous system from alcohol toxicity by making sure you're supplementing with 500 milligrams or even a gram a day of choline, 500 to 1,000 milligrams a day of choline, and eating choline-containing foods, eggs, seafood, beans, green leafy veggies, cruciferous veggies. In fact, it may not be a stretch to say that choline is it's at least one of the most important nutrients for alcoholics to, or anybody, not just an alcoholic, but anybody who's drinking alcohol on a regular basis to use. And for pregnant women who are drinking alcohol, you can actually help protect your baby's brain and minimize the harmful effects of alcohol on fetal neural development, to reduce the risks of fetal alcohol syndrome if you supplement with choline, if pregnant moms supplement with choline. According to an article in the July 2018 issue of the journal Alcoholism, Clinical and Experimental Research, prenatal supplements with the nutrient choline can help protect against alcohol-related deficits in children born to women who drink alcohol during pregnancy. There's also a very interesting relationship between choline and something called MTHFR deficiency, which we will talk about when we come back from our break. I am Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll be back right after this. We are back on The Bright Side. 844-236-6010 is our number. Suzanne Jones will be with us at the bottom of the hour. Her book is There Is Nothing to Fix. It's about the stress response and the trauma response and good health. We're dealing with all kinds of health challenges we're hearing about all kinds of health issues in the news today with the immune system, and nothing will suppress your immune system more than chronic long-term stress. Nutritional deficiencies, of course, are also involved in immune suppression, particularly in choline. Choline is very important for the immune system, and choline deficiencies are probably more common than anybody knows. Choline is just one of those all-time great supplements that you don't hear about, partially because we didn't really know about the importance of choline until relatively recently, about 20 years ago. If you've heard about, and probably most of you guys have heard about MTHFR deficiencies, methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, to those chemists in the audience. This is an enzyme that helps the body transform a toxic element called homocysteine into into a more benign form of a more benign amino acid. Homocysteine is a toxic amino acid, and it gets transformed or it loses its toxicity via the process of methylation, and methylation occurs via MTHFR. If you have a deficiency in MTHFR, homocysteine can build up. And homocysteine is thought to be a bad guy when it comes to all kinds of health challenges, and MTHFR deficiencies are thus thought to be responsible for a lot of problems. Here's the thing about MTHFR deficiencies. It's not permanent. It's not, even though it is controlled by genes, the enzyme is controlled by genes, just because you have an MTHFR deficiency doesn't mean that you have some kind of genetic defect. It usually means that you're just not healthy. It usually means that your body's just not firing on all cylinders, particularly at the level of the thyroid. Which means that if you have an MTHFR deficiency, you've been told you have an MTHFR deficiency, you've had it tested, and the chiropractor or the alternative practitioner, usually it's alternative practitioners who are talking about this, says, oh, you have this genetic defect. It's an MTHFR deficiency. What it really means is you got to go back to the triangle, because you're probably hypothyroid, you're probably got your blood sugar messed up, and you more than likely have a digestive problem as well. So if you've been told you have an MTHFR deficiency, you don't have to freak out about it. You just got to go back to the triangle of disease and deal with the same kind of health issues and the same kind of health challenges that anybody who's dealing with health challenges has to deal with, and that's the thyroid, the blood sugar system, and the digestive system. There's also supplements that you can use to address MTHFR deficiencies. That is supplements that help you methylate, transform, deactivate, whatever word you want to use, homocysteine. And one of the best is choline. Not because necessarily of the choline itself, but because of the choline metabolite betaine. And I'm going to talk a lot about betaine because this is a super fabulous nutritional supplement, and one that is very, very underappreciated. Yeah, choline is underappreciated, but betaine is really, really underappreciated. Betaine, you've probably seen it on the nutrition facts or the ingredient deck of your Ultimate Enzymes. And most of the time when we see betaine, it's in the form of betaine HCl, betaine hydrochloride. And betaine HCl is in most digestive enzyme supplements. You'll find it in the Ultimate Enzymes, not because of the betaine, but because of the HCl. The betaine has a chemical structure that allows it to carry HCl. It's a carrier for HCl. But what's underappreciated and not recognized sometimes is the betaine itself has very important nutritional benefits, including for methylation. This whole idea of betaine and choline and methylation is all connected to the fact that these molecules are very important for the fat system of the body. Choline is named for the presence, for its presence in bile. Bile actually, or chol actually, is the Greek word for bile. And many of the derivatives, cholic acid, for example, are technically considered to be bile salts. Choline is actually a basic building block of what are called bile salts. You may have seen that term on your digestive enzymes. It's in the Ultimate Enzymes as well. That means choline can be helpful for people who are dealing with bile issues. Bile deficiency is a very underappreciated cause of health challenges. And if you're taking a lot of prescription drugs, if you're taking any drugs, if you're smoking cigarettes, if you're interacting with toxicity in any way, focusing on your bile can be really, really important. Bile deficiencies can cause issues with toxicity buildup, cause problems with the absorption of fats, can lead to deficiencies in fatty vitamins, vitamins D, E, A, and K. DEEK can lead to deficiencies in essential fatty acids. If you have heartburn, chronic heartburn, GERD, abdominal tightness and bloating after you eat fatty foods, these are all signs, potential signs anyway, of bile deficiency. And bile can also become sludgy and clogged, particularly if you have food allergies and you're indulging in foods that you shouldn't be eating. That can lead to sludgy bile, which can lead to crystallization of the bile and lead to bile stones. And if anybody's ever had a gallstone or a bile stone, it's unspeakably miserable. There are a lot of people who have their gallbladder taken out just because they can't deal with the pain of a gallstone, and that's understandable. But one of the best things you could do if you do have chronic gallstones is make sure you're using choline, as well as betaine, as well as bile salts in general, and make sure you're staying away from problem foods. And because bile is not just important for the digestive system, because it's important for detoxification, particularly of hormones, by the way, of excess estrogen. And if you're dealing with endometriosis or fibromyalgia or any kind of breast tenderness or nodules or cysts or fibroids, all of these can be a reason to focus on bile, because when bile becomes sludgy, you don't clear out your estrogen as effectively. Insufficient or sludgy bile leads to accumulation of toxicity. And if you're on prescription drugs, it can make things worse. So focusing on bile, using bile supplements, using your ultimate enzymes, using betaine HCl, using lecithin, which also contains choline. These are all important for focusing on bile and can help fibromyalgia patients, endometriosis patients, women who are dealing with polycystic ovarian syndrome. If you're smoking, it makes it even worse, because many of the carcinogenic toxins that are in cigarettes are eliminated through the bile. And if you're constipated, that makes it worse, because bile is eliminated through a toxic bile is eliminated through the bowels, and if you're constipated, the bile just recirculates, and then it becomes sludgier and sludgier and sludgier. So if you suspect bile toxicity, if you're smoking cigarettes, taking prescription drugs, if you have any kind of female hormone issues, estrogenic issues, if you have food allergies, make sure you're supporting the bile system. There's also a very, very interesting connection between probiotics and bile, and keeping the microbiome healthy, the universe of bacteria that lives in the intestine, plays a really interesting role, and one that not a lot of people recognize in keeping your bile healthy. Same with fiber also. Fiber, making sure you're getting enough fiber, can also help with bile secretion. And fiber, of course, can help you clear out your bowels, as well as magnesium and vitamin C. Those are also good laxatives. Constipation plus the ingestion of toxicity and hormone problems is a very, very bad combination, and more than likely can lead to severe, life-threatening health issues, including cancer. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back with Suzanne Jones and her book, There Is Nothing to Fix, right after this. Don't go away. We're back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific and 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive pages at benfuchsarchives.com, also brightsideben.com. You could purchase longevity products at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. We've got news stories, blog posts, videos, lots of good health information on all our websites, and a Join the Team link that you can click on if you want to start a home-based business and join the longevity team. Call 866-735-2470 for info, or click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products, all formulated in my compounding pharmacy for wound healing. Wound healing equals beauty, never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our Truth Skin Health products. And check out our over 1,400 4- and 5-star reviews at truthreviewed.com, truthreviewed.com. Okay, I'm looking forward to speaking to our guest today. Suzanne Jones is an expert in the field of trauma and recovery through somatic methods. She's done workshops, and she's also a blogger on Elephant Journal. Her book is There Is Nothing to Fix. It's won a silver medal from the Nonfiction Authors Association and a bronze medal from the Wishing Shelf Book Awards. She's a finalist also in the International Book Awards. The book is a finalist in the International Book Awards and has been nominated for a 2020 Reader's Choice Award. Please welcome to The Bright Side, Suzanne Jones. Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Nice to see you. So let's just jump right into this. It seems like the world is messed up. It seems like people are messed up. It seems like everything's going wrong. How can you say there is nothing to fix?
Well, you're right about that. I mean, the world is turning upside down. People are going a little nutty. All this isolation is not good for us. But what I really mean by there's nothing to fix is that everything that causes this discomfort in us, causes this discourse, is rooted in the neurobiological survival system of our bodies, and it really just is a matter of updating it as opposed to fixing it. It's not broken. It's doing what it thinks its job is.
So I assume you're talking about the stress response when you say this, correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how, if the stress response is hardwired into us and we have a world that is just filled with triggers for the stress response, how can you deal with this?
It's actually very simple, though it's not easy. There's a way in which we can learn, and this is a lot of what I teach people, there's a way in which we can learn to pay attention to how we feel inside of our body before we actually react to anything, and using some very simple tools and practices to what we call create space. So what that means is, let's say something happens, let's say you're on your way to work, you're in traffic or something, and somebody cuts you off or somebody flips you the bird, and you have this big whoosh of feeling, I guess is what you would call it. But that is actually, that whoosh of feeling is actually this cocktail of biochemicals and hormones that are associated with that stress response. So what we teach people is really how to pay attention to that feeling and to create some space between that feeling in your body and what you do in response to that. And that actually does, over time, change things for you.
So I love that whoosh, because that's exactly what it is. It's a whoosh. I mean, that says it. That says it exactly. And we don't ever sit with the whoosh. We always go into what follows, which is usually freaking out. So there's an element of just being with that whoosh that is involved in this whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. There are times we need that whoosh. You know, if you're being chased by a bear or even trying to win a race, that whoosh, all those hormones serve a really good purpose. But many, many times we actually don't need them. Our body's just responding in a way that's a little disproportionate.
All right, so you talk about triggers of stress, and you mentioned 4 triggers. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, so there's a guy named Dr. Gabor Mate, and I have to give him credit for this because I learned this in his book, but the universal triggers of stress are any situation that has a feeling of uncertainty or a lack of control or a lack of information. And I've kind of added on also unpredictability, because that's usually how we end up rewiring in favor of survival, is to try to make everything predictable. So when things aren't predictable, oftentimes that can trigger us.
So we human beings need certainty and need predictability. We don't do well when we don't have predictability or certainty. But life is inherently unpredictable and uncertain. So it seems like a recipe for disaster.
Right. So that's the catch-22. Life is completely uncertain. There are many times where we don't have control over what's happening. And really what my book talks about is how can we change how we see these things. We're either going to see these unpredictable things as obstacles or setbacks or things that are negative, or we can kind of at least be a little bit curious about that space, and that will change how that will change the nature of that experience for us.
What about, you mentioned this, I think this was in one of your videos, about the intergenerational connection, how our response to stresses are learned through generations. Like, we're going to respond to stresses based on what happened to our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers. Can you discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, if you think about passing trauma from generation to generation as kind of passing a computer programming through 2 different people, and then as that gets passed along, that last person in line, that computer or that computer program isn't really relevant to their life. So that's a lot of how intergenerational trauma is passed from generation to generation. Is the trauma response in your body is a neurobiological, it's neurobiological circuitry, or an imprint maybe is the best way to describe it. And when that isn't resolved, when that's not healed, that imprint can pass from person to person. So you and I might have things that our survival response triggers in response to, and we really don't have any idea why, and we can't figure it out. So it just feels like maybe we're just a little nutty.
How can you deal with it if it's so deep in your brain, if it's so hardwired from generations? How can you deal with that?
This is the very reason why interfacing with the body first is so important and really effective. Because when you stop trying to figure out, when you stop trying to analyze what's going on in your head, when you kind of take your head out of the picture and you just go right to the awareness of how your body feels and using those tools and practices to create that space, that can actually that can change things for you even if you don't know what it's about.
So just learning to listen to the body, or speaking body, if you will, seems like it's the key to this whole process, correct?
100%, yeah.
All right. Well, that's really fascinating stuff. So when we come back, I want to talk about compassion, because you mentioned this thing called self-compassion, and I want to talk about that and how it relates to dealing with trauma. We've got Suzanne Jones. Her book is There Is Nothing to Fix. More with Suzanne right after this on The Bright Side. Okay, we are back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're talking to Suzanne Jones. Her book is There Is Nothing to Fix, Becoming Whole Through Radical Self-Acceptance. It's so intriguing to me that we have to say radical self-acceptance, and we have to talk about self-compassion, Suzanne. Like, it seems like it would be the most normal, natural thing to accept yourself and to have compassion for yourself. Why is this such a radical idea?
Very hard for us not to judge ourselves, because we go through the developmental years when we're children trying to figure out how to get it right so that we'll have assurance of our parents' love and, further on acceptance into peer groups. And so when we get to our adult lives and we have all of these conditions that we've set for ourselves in terms of who we need to be and how we need to be, finding that radical self-compassion feels very dangerous, actually.
How ironic that loving yourself would be dangerous. Doesn't that seem weird?
Well, it seems weird until you really kind of think about it in terms of evolution and, what our bodies do in order to survive. And really one of the things that I think is very interesting is the whole survival system of our body is still very, very primitive in how it acts, but our society is very sophisticated, and the two haven't really lined up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like we're living with caveman neurology or Paleolithic neurology in the 21st century.
That's right. And if you got rejected or kicked out of the cave back then, you would actually surely die. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're still wired to survive by connecting. And that's really important, that whole idea of connection as well. And I think connection with parents, too. I mean, doesn't a lot of this have to do with a sense of disconnection from our parents or our primary caregivers at a young age?
Absolutely. We can perceive disconnection even under what would be considered normal circumstances, just because we're so young and our brains aren't really developed enough to understand the full picture.
Do you think the people who are planning out our responses to the current epidemic need to read your book?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we're doing everything wrong, aren't we?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'd say we're doing everything wrong, but what I will say is that there's such a divide that it's not helping. For sure. There's a way in which we can connect, come together, and I think that there would be more unity, more harmony, and things would actually move forward in a more impactful way.
Do you see how we're encouraging disconnection with our response to what's going on in the world today, with masks and with lockdowns and keeping people social distancing? Even the term social distancing seems so horrible. It's like it's the exact opposite of what you're talking about here.
Yeah, it's actually really bad for us. I did actually write an article for a website about the hidden cost of social distancing. There is a way in which our body triggers continuous stress when we're isolated, and that can lead to long-term negative impacts. So it's important to know there's going to be a mental health crisis that follows this pandemic for sure.
Do you think Orthodox medicine and Orthodox medicine's response to these things, as well-meaning as it may be, is kind of unsophisticated and simplistic?
Well, I don't know that I would go that far. I would just say that I think there are also other options that are helpful that can be added in, that can be validated and offered in along with other medical interventions,
like psychological kinds of things. I assume you mean, correct?
Yeah, because when you have a lifetime of toxic stress or chronic stress running through your body, that actually does lead to physical disease and lots of autoimmune conditions and things like that. So it has to be considered into the whole health picture. Absolutely.
How much of physical disease is related to these things? Do you think all of it or a large percentage of it?
Well, I think a large percentage of it. Again, one of my mentors is Dr. Gabor Mate, who wrote a book called When the Body Says No, and it really is all about chronic stress leading to specifically autoimmune diseases, so things like cancer, MS, ALS, things where your body sort of turns against, even things like eczema or leaky gut system. These are things where your body turns against itself. It kind of attacks itself.
Yeah.
And Dr. Mate has really been able to connect all of these types of diseases to stress, this continuous stress feedback loop. And in particular, and this is really important, not necessarily in the way you think, not like, oh, I have so much work to do, I can't get it done, but saying yes when you want to say no. Being somebody who you aren't really, but being that person because you think it's who you need to be. That is a source of continuous stress in your body.
Inauthenticity.
Yeah.
Not being true to yourself. Where does speaking of Dr. Mate, where does addiction fit into all of this?
Well, I've worked with a lot of people recovering from addiction, and there is now some new ideas that addiction is really rooted in this idea of disconnection and feeling like you don't belong or there's something about you that just makes you fundamentally flawed. And the discomfort that creates somatically in your body is so intense that taking a drug to sort of numb that or to distract yourself from that makes a lot of sense if you think about it that way. It's in the long term, it's very bad for you, obviously.
Trying to fill something, trying to fill up a hole, like self-soothe in a way. Is that what you're trying
exactly.
to? So give us a strategy for dealing with that. Say somebody wants to quit something, quit coffee, for example, something that seems like benign as coffee or caffeine. How can we use your techniques or your strategies or your concepts to deal with something like that?
Oh, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. The most important thing is for you to notice how your body feels before you reach for that coffee, when you reach for that coffee, after you drink that coffee, right? And kind of to start with noticing how you feel in your body every step of the way.
Wow.
So that you can actually start to use tools to be with the feelings that drive you to reach for that thing without reaching for that thing.
Do you think there's a dichotomy or a continuum between being mental and being somatic, and our problems lie in being towards the mental side of the continuum as opposed to the somatic side?
100%. I would say that the majority of human suffering is in the mind. right? The sensations we have in our body, those are unavoidable. So that's pain that's unavoidable, but the suffering is avoidable because the suffering is created in our minds when we start to tell ourselves that we're not good enough, or there's something wrong with us, or that we have to fix ourselves. So I agree with that statement 100%.
Okay, so we got about a minute left here. Why should somebody buy the book, and what are they going to get out of reading the book?
Somebody should buy the book if they want some freedom from their emotional, self-bondage or their turmoil. And what was the second question? What are they going to get out of it?
Yeah. What would they get out of the book? What are they going to get from reading the book?
They'll get a completely new understanding of themselves and lots of tools and practices to use to recover.
Awesome. Your website, give out your website, please.
SueJonesEmpowerment.com. So SUEJONES empowerment.com.
Is the book on Audible? Is it available on tape?
It is.
Awesome.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. All right, great. The book is There Is Nothing to Fix, Becoming Whole Through Radical Self-Acceptance. Suzanne Jones. Thank you so much for being on the bright side, Suzanne. Appreciate it. And one more time on your website. One more time on the website.
SueJonesEmpowerment.com.
SuzanneJonesEmpowerment.com. Thanks so much for being...
Sorry, correction, not Suzanne. SueJonesEmpowerment.com.
SueJonesEmpowerment.com. Thanks for being on the bright side. Best of luck to you. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Have a great day. Okay, take care. There is Nothing to Fix. Suzanne Jones is the author. Becoming Whole Through Radical Self-Acceptance. SueJonesEmpowerment.com is her website. And that is all the time we have for today on the bright side. Thanks for listening. I am Pharmacist Ben. Have yourselves a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We'll talk to y'all later, folks. Bye for now. Echoes of my mind.